At our best friend's summer barbecue, a rich guest told my girlfriend, "I could give you a better life." She laughed and told the stunned crowd, "Anywhere, but here is a better life," before calling me boring and leaving with him. I responded with complete silence, moved out, and blocked her. 2 weeks later, it turned out he was a total fraud with a girlfriend in the city, and now she's completely alone and blowing up my phone begging me to take her back. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The words didn't just hurt. They dissolved something. Some fundamental, unspoken agreement that held my world together. They were delivered with a laugh, a sharp, glassy sound that cut through the murmur of the party. "You're boring, Tom." A comfortable, predictable, boring man. I can still hear the exact pitch of it. That's where this starts. It didn't come out of nowhere, I guess. If I'm honest, the signs were there, floating in the air like static for weeks. I just kept swatting them away. Ashley had been restless. She'd sigh for no reason while scrolling through her phone. She'd make little comments about friends from college who were really living their best lives in other cities, on other continents. I'd chalked it up to a late 20s slump. I'd planned this party, Mike's annual summer barbecue, as a thing for us. A chance to reconnect with friends, have a few drinks, remember the good stuff. I'd even bought a new shirt. Dark blue, because she once said it brought out the gray in my eyes. When we arrived, she'd been attached to my side for all of 20 minutes, a glass of Pinot Grigio in her hand, making polite, if slightly distant, small talk. Then Ethan Carlisle arrived. You could feel the room shift. Ethan had that kind of energy. He didn't enter a room, he occupied it. He was a friend of Mike's brother, a finance guy from the city who'd somehow decided to grace our suburban sprawl with his presence. He was all crisp polo shirt, expensive cologne, and a laugh that was just a little too loud. I saw Ashley notice him. It was a physical thing, a straightening of her spine, a flick of her hair. "Who's that?" she asked, her voice a notch brighter. "No idea," I said. "Some friend of David's, I think." "He looks interesting," she murmured, and already her gaze was drifting away from me. I lost her to his orbit about 10 minutes later. I was by the grill, talking baseball with Mike, when I saw it happen. Ethan told a story, his hands moving dramatically. Ashley threw her head back and laughed, a real, throaty laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. She placed a hand on his arm. A familiar, intimate gesture I thought was reserved for me. A cold little stone settled in my gut. "Hey man, you okay?" Mike asked, following my gaze. His smile faded. Yeah, that's Ethan. David says he's a real piece of work." "Seems like it," I said, trying to keep my voice light. The night wore on. Ashley stayed glued to Ethan's side. I circulated, talked to people, nursed a beer, all the while feeling like a satellite tracking a single, burning star. Every time I glanced over, he was leaning closer, saying something meant only for her, and she was drinking it in, her eyes sparkling. I tried once. I walked over, placed a hand on the small of her back. "Having fun?" I asked. She turned, and her smile was different. It was the polite, public smile she used for my coworkers. "Loads. Tom, this is Ethan." "Ethan, my boyfriend, Tom." Ethan gave me a once-over, a quick, dismissive flick of the eyes that took in my new shirt, my ordinary jeans, my sensible shoes. He extended a hand. A firm, crushing grip. "Tom, good to meet you. Ashley here was just telling me about your, what was it? Data analysis? Fascinating stuff." The way he said fascinating made it sound like terminal illness. "It pays the bills," I said. "I'll bet it does," he replied, his smile not reaching his eyes. He turned back to Ashley. "As I was saying, after we closed the deal in Monaco, we just decided to take the yacht for a spin along the coast for a week. Spontaneous, you know." I was invisible again. I stood there for another painful minute before drifting away, the stone in my gut now a boulder. The critical mass hit a couple of hours later. I was near the patio doors, debating whether to just call an Uber and leave, when I saw Ethan jingle his car keys, sleek, silver, from a German manufacturer I couldn't afford. He was holding court for Ashley and a few others. And so I told him, "If you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space," he brayed. The group laughed on cue. His eyes landed on Ashley, hungry and possessive. "This is a nice little gathering, Mike. But it's a bit tame for my tastes." "No offense." "None taken," Mike said flatly, from across the deck. Ethan ignored him, focusing entirely on Ashley. "You seem like someone who appreciates a more thrilling pace. I could show you that. I could give you a better life than this." He said it like a joke, a playful, hyperbolic offer. But his eyes were dead serious. And that's when it happened. Ashley laughed, that same sharp, glassy sound from my memory. She looked right at me. The entire group went quiet. All the pretense, all the social veneer evaporated. Anywhere but here is a better life, she said, her voice cold and clear, carrying in the sudden silence. My heart stopped. The world narrowed to her face. She took a step toward me, her eyes holding mine, and she delivered the lines that would cleave my life in two. You're boring, Tom. A comfortable, predictable, boring man. She said the last word with such pure, undiluted contempt that it felt like a physical slap. You know it's true. The silence was absolute. You could hear the ice melting in someone's glass. Mike looked like he'd been punched. Ethan's smirk was a monument to smug victory. I didn't say a word. What was there to say? Any protest would just be boring. I just stood there, my face numb, my ears ringing, the new shirt I'd bought for her feeling like a stupid costume. She didn't wait for a response. She turned her back on me, on us, on everything. She looped her arm through Ethan's. Let's get out of this dump, she said, and she didn't look back. I watched them walk away, through the stunned crowd, out the gate, and into the night. The party remained frozen, a gallery of pitying and shocked faces staring at the exhibit. Me, the boring boyfriend, publicly deemed and discarded. I stood there for a full minute, just breathing, the weight of every eye upon me. Then, with a calm I did not feel, I set my half-finished beer down on the railing. I didn't look at anyone. I just walked through the silent house, out the front door, and into the quiet of my car. The hum of the engine was the only sound in a world that had just been utterly, irrevocably dismantled. The drive home was a study in silence. Not a peaceful silence, but a thick, smothering void where sound used to be. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't scream or pound the steering wheel. I just drove. The streetlights strobed across the dashboard, each flash illuminating the empty passenger seat. Boring, predictable, comfortable. The words weren't just in my head. They were the tires on the pavement, the hum of the engine. They were the new, awful truth of my life. I pulled into our driveway, and killed the engine. The house was dark. Our house. The one we'd picked out together, painted together, where we talked about maybe, one day, kids. It was just a dark shape now. A shell. I walked inside. The familiar creak of the third step, the smell of her vanilla candle still lingering in the air. It all felt like a museum exhibit of a life that had ended hours ago. I didn't turn on the lights. I stood in the living room, in the dark, and just breathed. The numbness was a mercy. It was a layer of ice over a chasm of something much worse, a raw, howling humiliation that threatened to pull me under. I could still feel the stares of everyone at the party, their pity of physical weight. But beneath that, colder and sharper, was the memory of her face. Not angry, not sad, dismissive, as if she were finally brushing off a piece of lint that had been annoying her for years. I didn't cry. I didn't break anything. The part of me that would have done those things, the part that cared enough to have a passionate, messy breakdown, felt like it had been surgically removed. I was hollow. I went to our bedroom. The bedroom. Her side of the closet was open, a riot of color and texture next to my orderly rows of blues and grays. Boring. I took a pillow and a blanket from the hall closet, the ones we never used, and walked into the guest room. I closed the door. I didn't slam it. I just closed it. The click of the latch was the most definitive sound I'd made all night. I lay down on the stiff, unfamiliar bed and stared at the ceiling. The numbness began to recede, just enough for a single, clear thought to form in the silence. It's over. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a lament. It was a simple, cold fact. A diagnosis. The patient had been terminal for a long time, and tonight, the doctor had finally stopped the charade and pronounced the time of death. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Once. Twice. A flurry of texts. I didn't look. It would be Mike. Or someone else from the party. I didn't want their outrage, their condolences. Their pity was just another form of the same humiliation. The phone eventually fell silent. I must have slept, because the next thing I knew, gray morning light was filtering through the blinds. The house was still silent. She hadn't come home. The final confirmation. I got up. I showered. I dressed in jeans and an old t-shirt. I moved through the routine by muscle memory, my mind quiet, my emotions still locked behind that sheet of ice. I made coffee. One mug. I was sitting at the kitchen island, staring at the steam rising from the black liquid, when my phone rang. It was Mike. I let it go to voicemail. He called again immediately. On the third ring, I picked up. Tom? Jesus, man, where are you? Are you okay? What the hell was that last night? I'm going to kill her. I'm serious. I'm going to find that Mike. My voice sounded strange. Flat. Steady. It didn't sound like me. He stopped. Yeah, man. I'm fine, I said. And in that moment, it was true. I was fine. I was breathing. The world had ended, and I was still breathing. Don't do anything. Don't do anything? Tom, she publicly eviscerated you and then left with that human sports car. I've never seen anything so fucking cruel in my life. I know what I saw. I said, my tone still even. She showed me exactly who she is. I'm just going to handle it. Handle it how? What are you going to do? You want me to come over? We can. I don't know, man. We can do something. There's nothing to do. I said. The plan was already forming, not in a burst of inspiration, but like a checklist appearing in my mind. Calm. Methodical. Thanks, Mike. Really. But I've got it. I heard him let out a long, frustrated breath. Okay. Okay, man. But you call me. For anything. You hear me. I hear you. I ended the call and set the phone down. Handle it. I started in the bedroom. I didn't pack all my things. That would take time I didn't want to spend here. I opened my closet and took my go bag, the overnight duffel I used for work trips. I filled it with a week's worth of clothes, my best suits, my important documents from the lockbox. I took my toothbrush, my razor, the few books on my nightstand. I was a ghost, quietly collecting the remnants of my existence. I went to my home office and logged into our joint bank account. Our savings were modest, but half was mine. I initiated a transfer to my personal account, the one she'd never been on. I logged into the billing websites for the utilities, the mortgage, the credit cards we shared. I changed the passwords and removed my auto-pay information. I didn't cancel anything. I just stepped off the train. Where it went after that was not my problem. Each click of the mouse, each item placed in the bag, was another layer of insulation, another degree of separation. The ice was thickening, and with it came a strange, quiet power. The power of no reaction. The power of silence. It took less than 2 hours. My car was packed with the essentials of my life. I stood once more in the kitchen. I took my key off my keyring. I laid it on the cold granite of the island. A simple, final gesture. I didn't write a note. What could I say? Sorry I'm so boring? No. My absence would be the only message. It would be louder than any screaming fit, any pathetic plea. It was the calm, predictable, boring thing to do. And for the first time, I was perfectly happy to be exactly who I was. I walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove to Mike's. He'd offered his spare room without me even having to ask. When I pulled up, he was waiting on the porch, his face etched with concern. He came down to the car as I got out. Jesus, Tom, you sure you're okay? I looked past him, at the quiet street, at the clear blue sky. The world was still turning. I nodded, pulling my duffel from the passenger seat. Yeah, Mike, I said, and my voice was my own again, just quieter. Calmer. I'm sure. The silence in Mike's spare room was different. It wasn't the suffocating quiet of that house, waiting for a door that wouldn't open. This was a productive silence. It was the hum of a laptop, the rhythm of a weights rack, the turning of a page. I went to work. I came home. I ran. I read. I did not talk about her. Mike tried, at first. He'd come home with a six-pack and a look of grim determination, ready to dissect the betrayal over beers. I'd take one beer, listen to him vent for a few minutes, and then steer the conversation to the baseball game on TV or a project at work. After a week, he stopped trying. He just started treating me like me again, and the relief on his face was palpable. The first crack in the dam of silence came about 10 days after the party. Mike burst through the front door, his face alight with the fervent glee of a messenger bearing spectacularly bad news for someone else. You are not going to believe this, he announced, dumping grocery bags on the counter. You are not going to believe it. I looked up from my book. Believe what? So Sarah texted me. You know Sarah, from the party? She's friends with Lisa, who was talking to David, whose brother knows Ethan. He was practically vibrating. The story is everywhere. It's a total shit show. I closed my book, marking my page. I said nothing. I just waited. So, Mr. Monaco Yacht. Mike continued, leaning forward on the counter. Turns out he's not some finance titan. He's a consultant, which is apparently code for between actual jobs. The car? Leased. The stories? Mostly bullshit. But get this, the guy has a girlfriend. A serious one. Back in the city. He paused for effect. I took a sip of water. So, this girlfriend, Mike went on, his words tumbling out. She got suspicious. Checked his phone logs. Found a million texts to a number she didn't recognize. Ashley's number. She drove out here 2 days ago. Confronted him at the golf club where he was trying to schmooze potential clients. Made a huge, screaming scene. Apparently, she called him a pathological lying leech in front of everyone. Then she dumped his ass on the 18th green and took his leased car back to the city. He's literally stranded here. He stared at me, waiting for my reaction. A laugh, a cheer, something. I nodded slowly. So he's a fraud. A fraud. A loser. And that's not even the best part. Mike was almost breathless. Ashley. Oh man. So she'd been staying with him at his short-term rental. When the girlfriend exposed everything, Ethan just shut down. Told Ashley it was a fun distraction, but he wasn't looking for anything complicated. He basically threw her out. She had to call an Uber. And the friend group, everyone knows, Tom. Everyone saw what she did to you, and now they see her getting publicly dumped by a con man. She's a pariah, man. No one is returning her texts. She's completely alone. He finally stopped, chest heaving, a triumphant grin on his face. He had brought me this offering of schadenfreude, expecting me to feast on it with him. I set my glass down. I looked out the window at the setting sun. I felt nothing. No thrill of victory. No pang of sympathy. Just a distant, clinical acknowledgement of cause and effect. I looked back at Mike. That sounds like a problem for her, I said, my voice even. Mike's grin faltered, replaced by a look of confused admiration. That's it. A problem for her. Dude, this is biblical-level karma. Its consequences, I corrected him softly. She made a choice. These are the consequences. It has nothing to do with me. I picked my book back up. The conversation was over. Mike stood there for a second, shook his head in disbelief, and started putting the groceries away. The message was received. The text started that night. It began with a single, tentative buzz. Then another. I left my phone face down on the nightstand. I knew it was her. The area code was the same, but the number was new. She was probably using a friend's phone or an app. The first one came through at 11:03 p.m. Unknown number, Tom. I know you're getting these. Please, we need to talk. I didn't respond. The ice held. The next morning, there was a barrage. The tone had shifted from pleading to defensive, laced with the familiar poison of blame. Unknown number. I was so drunk. You know how I get. You should have stopped me. You should have taken me home. This is partly your fault for just standing there. Unknown number. He was just so loud and everything was so boring. You know how those parties are. You didn't even try to make it fun. Unknown number. Are you really this petty? You're just going to ignore me? After 5 years? I deleted them. I blocked the number. It was like swatting a fly. An hour later, a new number appeared. This one was soaked in nostalgia, a calculated weapon she thought could melt the ice. Unknown number 2. Remember when we went to that little cabin in the mountains and it snowed and we stayed in bed for 2 days? We were so happy. We can get back to that. It was a mistake. A huge, stupid mistake. Unknown number 2. I think I was just scared. Scared of how much I love you and how safe it felt. I sabotaged it. I'm so sorry. I blocked that one too. The safe felt like another dig. Boring. The third number came in the afternoon. The desperation was raw now, stripped of all pretense. Unknown number 3. He's gone. He used me and he's gone. Everyone is gone. No one will talk to me. Unknown number 3. I have nowhere to go. Please. I need you. You're my person. I'm so alone. I was at the gym when that one came through. I read it between sets, my heart rate steady. I didn't feel like her person. I felt like a life raft she was screaming for after she'd personally set her own ship on fire. I kept lifting. I finished my workout. I blocked the number. The final message came as I was walking out of the gym, the evening air cool on my skin. The tone had curdled. The mask was fully off. Unknown number 4. You're really just going to ghost me? After everything I did for you? I made you interesting. I gave you a life. You were nothing before me. You're a pathetic, weak little man. Answer me. I almost smiled. There she was. The real Ashley. The one who'd looked at me with such cold contempt at the party. The anger was her final, futile attempt to provoke a reaction, to prove she still had any power over my emotions. She was trying to pick a fight with a ghost. I slipped the phone into my pocket and started the walk to my car. I heard the frantic clicking of heels on pavement behind me. Tom, please. I turned. She was standing there, under the harsh fluorescent light of the parking lot. She looked small. Her eyes were red raw and puffy. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was wearing sweatpants and a jacket I recognized as mine. She looked nothing like the glittering, cruel woman from the party. "Tom, please," she cried, her voice breaking. "Just talk to me. I'm sorry. It was the biggest mistake of my life. He's gone. Everyone's gone." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just looked at her, waiting for her to finish. My silence seemed to unnerve her more than any yelling could have. "We can fix this," she pleaded, taking a step closer. Her hands were trembling. "We can go to counseling. We can move. We can go back to how we were." That was it. The key that unlocked my calm, final response. There was no how we were. There was only the truth she had built. "There is no we, Ashley," I said. My voice was quiet but absolute. It didn't waver. It didn't rise. It was a simple statement of fact. She flinched as if I'd shouted. "You don't mean that. You love me. The man you called boring died at that party," I said, my gaze steady on hers. I felt no anger, no hatred, just a vast, immeasurable distance between us. "You killed him, and I like the man I am now much, much better." Tears streamed down her face, but they had no power here. "Tom, do not contact me again," I said, cutting her off. It wasn't a threat. It was a boundary, delivered with the calm finality of a judge issuing a sentence. I turned my back on her. I heard a choked sob behind me, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I got into my car, started the engine, and pulled out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I saw her standing alone under the light, shrinking into the distance. At the next red light, I took out my phone. I found the last unknown number. I pressed block this caller. Then I drove home, into the quiet, peaceful life I was building for myself. A life where she was already irrelevant. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.